It's time for our daily dose of cope. Our news anchors are off for today, but if you want this screenshot, go ahead and take it. This leopard is eating a face, and you might need this one day. Let's go ahead and check out some of these stories. And actually, today's video will mostly be taken up with a couple of articles. This first one, you need to see it. Don't bail out the farmers, because farmers were typically for Trump. Let them face the consequences of their actions. Elections have consequences. Let their faces get eaten, because this is what they voted for. Let's get into the article. We are all seeing how tariffs damage economies by raising prices, distorting markets, and encouraging foreign retaliation against our export industries. What we see less of is the swamp-infested cronyism that tariffs encourage. When tariffs are enacted, as with the 2018 steel and aluminum tariffs, lobbyists rush to seek exemptions for individual businesses. By my colleague Judge Glock's count, those 2018 tariffs prompted 425,000 requests for exemptions, 200,000 of which have been approved based largely on political donations and connections. These individual business carve-outs, however, pale in comparison to the budget-busting tariff bailouts likely headed back to the farmers of deep red America. During Trump's first term, farmers received $24 billion on top of their regular farm subsidies to compensate for the loss of access to foreign markets resulting from Trump's trade war, such as China's 25% retaliatory tariff on American soybeans. Then, in 2024, even as candidate Trump promised a more aggressive trade war that could cripple the farm economy, rural voters nonetheless preferred Trump to Kamala Harris by a 30-point margin. Trump earned a staggering 78% of the vote in 444 counties most heavily dependent on farming. In short, farm country voted overwhelmingly to unleash a new trade war. And now these same farmers and their political leaders want taxpayers to finance another round of bailouts to protect them from the consequences of their own votes. Congress already approved $10 billion in emergency payments to farmers during President Joe Biden's final days. And now Trump has reportedly told Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rollins to have some programs in place that will potentially mitigate any economic catastrophe that could happen. Congress and the farm organizations are already discussing how to structure such a taxpayer bailout. Told you I'm reading this whole thing. Another farm bailout should infuriate taxpayers. Consumers and businesses who paid $16 billion in tariff costs last month are not receiving any federal taxpayer bailouts. Other American export industries that will suffer from a prolonged trade war, such as software, electronics, pharmaceuticals, and energy, are not receiving any broad-based federal bailouts, just those lobbyist-negotiated individual carve-outs. Yet farmers who actively endured an earlier Trump trade war and then provided overwhelming vote margins to return Trump to the White House to unleash an even more destructive trade war are now set to receive special taxpayer protection from the consequences of their own votes. What happened to the Republican belief in individual accountability? Republicans love to lecture low-income voters that poverty is a moral failing, and they argue that shielding poor families from the consequences of their poverty-inducing decisions will undermine the necessary incentives to change their behavior. Apparently, such tough love approaches do not apply to Republican voters, who are always quick to explain why their own taxpayer bailouts and welfare payments are different, because they are welfare recipients. Farmers are the real welfare queens. The true economic conservative, all 8 of us remaining, will not be surprised to learn that such bailouts make little economic sense as well. Most of the 2018-2019 assistance payments were paid from the Market Facilitation Program, MFP. In calculating the bailout formulas, the USDA vastly overestimated the forthcoming farmer losses to tariffs, leading it to significantly overcompensate affected farmers. U.S. food exports in 2018 and 2019 fell only slightly, and soybean revenues expected to bear the brunt of those retaliatory tariffs temporarily dipped by 11%, before surging 60% above pre-tariff levels by 2022 after the trade war had died down. Moreover, those earlier farm bailouts were egregiously tilted towards the wealthiest agribusinesses. A study by the American Enterprise Institute notes the largest 10% of farms with the average annual gross farm incomes of 2.14 million received average subsidies of 230,700 per farm in 2018 and 2019 from the MFP and crop insurance program. By contrast, owners of mid-sized farms received an average of $18,000, and smaller farms received virtually nothing, and black farmers received nothing. This is mostly the white farmers that are receiving actual benefits and grants and loans and that kind of thing. White farmers, not black farmers, because we do still live in a racist country. These bailout payments not only exceeded farmer losses from the trade war, they were also duplicative. Washington already distributes $20 billion in annual farm subsidies that are paid out even during boom years. And when the farm economy dips, the aforementioned federal crop insurance program already compensates farmers at taxpayers' expense. Receiving regular farm subsidies, crop insurance payments, and tariff bailout payments means essentially triple dipping on government farm welfare. Farm subsidies remain broadly popular because Americans mistakenly believe such policies exist to protect poor, struggling family farmers from crop and weather unpredictability. In reality, farm subsidies are America's largest corporate welfare program. The agriculture industry has undergone intense consolidation into mammoth agribusinesses, which are reaping the benefits of billions of dollars in farm aid. Owners of the largest 10% of farms, which receive the majority of farm subsidies and bailouts, are projected to report an average net cash income of $572,000 this year. Again, that figure is not their gross sales, but rather their net cash income after expenses. Even with tariffs and a deep pandemic recession, net farm income since 2016 has showed an average profit margin of 24% and not dropped below 15% in any of those years. These healthy profits have blessed agriculture with one of the lowest bankruptcy rates of any industry. Yes, weather, crop, and now tariff unpredictability bring yearly fluctuations in farm income. Yet the answer to volatility is insurance, not a permanent welfare system that pays out in both good years and bad. Crop insurance and future contracts can smooth out the yearly volatility in a manner that leaves the wealthier agribusinesses closer to their quite high average incomes without burdening taxpayers. Of course, focusing on agriculture economics misses the point. Farm subsidies and bailouts are about raw political power. A century of government central planning in agriculture has unwittingly consolidated most farm production away from family farms and towards corporate agribusinesses. It has also organized farm producers into a politically aggressive network of broad and commodity-based lobbying organizations that have built real power in Washington. Lawmakers who would never admit that health insurance lobbyists influenced their health care bill or that the coal industry wrote their energy bill will openly brag that the farm lobby writes the farm bills. Republicans are disproportionately elected in rural America and are just as aggressive as urban Democrats in shoveling welfare benefits and subsidies back home to their supporters. The GOP's free market rhetoric ending at the farm's edge. Longtime central planning in agriculture and Trump's central planning in trade have set the stage for another expensive round of taxpayer bailouts, welfare payments, runaway spending, and swampy government favoritism. Tariff revenues are diverted to new spending rather than contributing to deficit reduction, all to protect rural Americans from the costs and consequences of a policy they voted to unleash on the rest of the country. If Trump and congressional Republicans believe tariffs are good for America, then they should embrace their consequences. Don't bail out the farmers. Again, I completely agree. They need to feel the consequences of their actions. They need to feel what their votes bring. Stop bailing them out. Here were a couple of comments under this post. Syndax says, farmers have been getting subsidies for generations. SNAP benefits, WIC benefits, crop and livestock insurance, etc. are all things they benefited from over the past few generations. Yet for the past 30 years or so, they've all marched into the voting booth and voted for the party that wants to remove all those subsidies and are shocked that they can't survive when those are removed. They've been getting shielded from the consequences of their vote for a long time, and it's about time they learn that there are consequences. And then Dow Geek says, this is pretty accurate. My buddy is friends with a few farmers and ranchers out in West Texas, where he has a hunting lease. They all vote Republican because they think they get more subsidies when conservatives are in charge. They don't know the history of all those programs that you listed. They act like Democrats are a bunch of coastal elites who don't know where their food comes from. Medium Drink says, that's the modern Republican Party. Terrible policies, but excellent branding. And then Hey McKay says, all you have to do is say, they're invading the southern border and making our kids gay. Vote for me or you're not a patriot. Their voters don't care about policy or empathy, just about hurting others. They don't understand in the name of ignorance and hatred. Toss a little patriotism in there to really make sure you get the uneducated voter base who may not care about the hatred, but they just want to do right for the country.